quasi, quasi.
Merry Christmas, snow lovers, on what indeed looks set to be a white Christmas for many. Not just in the Alps, but right across a swathe of Central Europe, people are expecting to see at least a few flakes of snow. The Pyrenees, the Vosges, the Jura, the Massif Central, and indeed even some lowland areas have already seen snow during this week, and many throughout Central Europe should see at least a few flakes of snow on either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. This includes the Alps, where all regions are set to see at the very least a cosmetic dusting, and indeed some regions are expecting to see a hell of a lot more than that. Although unfortunately it is the regions which need it the most which will see the least, and it's the regions which have already been getting lots over the last couple of weeks which are due to see a hell of a lot more over the next few days. So it is a bit of a tale of feast or famine in the Alps right now. Broadly speaking, we can divide the Alps into three distinct sectors at the moment based on its snow coverage. First of all, you have the north and west, the likes of the Savoie and Haute-Savoie in France and the Swiss valleys, which have still got really good coverage of snow up high, above around about 1800 metres, thanks to the snowfalls they received at the end of November and start of December. But they've seen very little snow since then, so certainly low down, they've really suffered, and some lower ski areas have got little or no snow, and even ski areas at moderate elevations are suffering on their lower slopes. And then you have the Eastern Alps, Slovenia, the Dolomites, and much of Austria, who have seen very little snow at all so far this season. Their last meaningful snowfalls were back in autumn, so they're really suffering right now. And finally, you have the southwestern Alps, so the Alps Maritime, Italian Piedmonte, and extending up towards the Via Latia and the fringes of the Vamoise and Tarentaise sectors in France, who are getting absolutely dumped on with snow right now, and have done so repeatedly over the last 2 weeks. They've been getting the lion's share of the snowfall, and then some. They've definitely got too much snow right now in places to be able to actually operate. Through the early part of this week, a low pressure system which has been anchored over the Mediterranean has been slowly drifting south and east towards and across Italy. This has established a retour d'est, a returning easterly wind across its northern flank, which has been bringing truly phenomenal amounts of precipitation in parts of southern France and northern Italy. This has been falling as snow to relatively low elevations thanks to its really high intensity, along with the cold air which has been drawn down from the north and east. The area around Prato Novoso and Limone Piemonte has been hit hardest. They have already received up to 1.4 metres of snow down at resort level, around 1500 metres, and they're expecting a further 90 centimetres plus of snow over the coming days. While the really intense precipitation has been restricted to the far southwest, the entire Italian margin of the southwestern Alps have received a decent amount of snow over the last few days, stretching as far north as parts of Aosta. But the likes of Salsi in the Via Latia have already received around 30 centimetres of snow, and we've seen similar snowfall totals in areas of the Gran Paradiso National Park. The heaviest precipitation fell during Monday night, but it's continuing to snow throughout the day today in all the regions which have already been experiencing snow. And then a second low pressure system is set to develop and track across virtually the same path as the first one through Christmas Eve and into Christmas Day. And this is expected to bring potentially another metre of snow to the same areas which have already been hit hardest already. So the likes of Prato Novoso and Limone in Piemonte. And likewise, Salsi and the Via Latia are expecting another 30 centimetres of snow themselves too. So, spanning the 5 days, from Sunday the 21st through to the end of Christmas Day, some areas in the extreme southwest of the Alps could well receive between 2 and 3 metres of snow down around about 2000 metres, and may end up receiving over 2 metres of snow even as low as 1500 metres, and around a metre of snow even below 1000 metres. So these are truly phenomenal snowfall totals in an area that didn't traditionally get huge amounts of snow. But unfortunately, they are only going to have one day to really truly be able to enjoy this, Boxing Day, because after that, on Saturday 27th, freezing levels are currently forecast to be shooting up well above 3,000 metres, indeed potentially up to about 3,500 metres, so it's going to get very, very hot very, very quickly. And in that strong Italian sunshine, those metres and metres of snow are going to turn to porridge really quickly. So while it's not going to thaw, going to melt that rapidly, it's going to become very, very dangerous. Even without that extreme temperature swing, with that volume of snowfall, the avalanche situation is going to be pretty serious. Throw into the mix the rapid thawing of some of the layers, then you've got a recipe for disaster really. So while it's going to look absolutely beautiful and stunning, Saturday 27th is going to be pretty lethal, pretty deadly. So it's really not going to be advisable heading out into the mountains in that part of the Alps on Saturday. So if you are lucky enough to be down there right now, then be sure to make the most of Christmas Day itself, whilst it's still snowing, while temperatures are still cold, the snow will still be really soft, really fluffy. But stick below the tree line, play it safe, stay low, and keep it mellow. But the reality is, with that volume of snowfall, many of those ski centres will struggle to get many of their upper lifts open anyway, so you probably won't have much choice in the matter. So I'm breaking my format a little bit today to talk to you about these helmets. As of the 1st of November 2025, Italy has become the only country in the world where it's mandatory for everybody on the slopes, whether it's skiers, snowboarders, snowbikers, even those sledging and tobogganing, to wearing a helmet. Previously it was only compulsory for minors, but now it is everybody. So yeah, if you are skiing in Italy at all this year, don't forget your lid. And of course that even applies if you're skiing in cross-border resorts such as La Rosière, for example, which is just down the road from me here. So don't get caught out if you're on holiday in La Rosière but you want to ski into the Tuile in Italy, because you're going to need one of these. And the consequence for those caught without a helmet in Italy is a fine of I think up to €200, and then confiscation of a lift pass between 1 and 3 days. And obviously the idea is to encourage people to go out and rent or buy a helmet, not to criminalise you, so you're not going to end up in court. But yeah, if you are caught skiing in resorts without a helmet, then you might lose your pass for up to 3 days. There's a bunch of other regulations which are getting talked about in the same conversation as the helmet laws, but the reality is they've all actually been in place since at least 2022, so 2 or 3 years now. So that's third-party liability insurance is compulsory. Many travel insurances and winter sports insurance will include that, but not all, so it's worth checking before you come. And if you don't have it, you can usually buy it as an add-on per day on top of your lift pass. When skiing off-piste, and that means anywhere off-piste, even if you're just very much on the edge of the piste, it's compulsory to carry avalanche gear. So that's your probe, that's your shovel and your transceiver. Most people will do that anyway, but not all. And another big one is drunk skiing is illegal. Indeed, being under the influence of drugs as well, but obviously drugs are illegal anyway. But yeah, the drink skiing limit is basically the same as a drink driving limit. So for most people, about a pint. Any more than that, and in theory, you can be prosecuted for skiing while under the influence. So that's worth bearing in mind as well. And the final piece of legislation is around eating. Apparently it's prohibited to eat food anywhere on the lifts, in the lift line, in the loading area, etc. Which is just utterly ridiculous. What kind of fascist state thinks it can tell people when they can and can't eat? But there we are. I would say don't ski in Italy, but unfortunately Italy's awesome, so do ski in Italy, just eat subtly and don't litter. Elsewhere in the Alps, while everybody is due to receive a few flakes of snow through Christmas Eve and into Christmas Day, everyone should wake up to a cosmetic dusting. The reality is, unfortunately, very little of that snowfall will make it north of the Italian divide, across the main Alpine barrier and into the Northern Alps. This does mean that some of the areas which do need it most, like the Dolomites, for example, ahead of the Winter Olympics in a month or so's time, they are going to receive some natural snow this time around, but still it's going to be relatively small amounts compared to what they actually need. And north of the Italian border, into Austria and Slovenia, it's going to be virtually no snow at all. Speaking of the Dolomites, they are making headlines for all the wrong reasons this week, with one of the resorts close to the Marmolada having hundreds, perhaps thousands of skiers stranded due to a lack of snow. At least that's how the tabloids were painting it. They were making it out as if a super rapid thaw had left skiers stranded mid-run as the snow deteriorated into mud and grass. I think in reality, what had happened is just one of the lower runs down into resort was closed. It always had been closed due to lack of snow. Perhaps some skiers didn't realise this, or perhaps they just simply had no choice. Ended up skiing down to a place where there was no way out except for one lift, and that led to, of course, huge queues. So that's a little bit less sensationalist, a little bit less newsworthy, but that is probably the reality of what happened. And as for fights breaking out between disgruntled skiers, well, that's just a European lift queue. There's nothing new there. When it comes to getting on busy lifts in Europe, it's survival of the fittest. It always has been. And also on the topic of the Dolomites, there are now starting to be serious concerns about the lack of snow in some of the resorts there that are due to be hosting events for the Winter Olympics. Even with very little natural snow, they would usually be able to fall back and rely on their man-made snow. But one resort in particular, Livigno, has had technical problems with their snowmaking. So, not only is there a lack of the natural white stuff, there's also a lack of man-made snow to be able to build the jumps and half-pipes, etc. for some of the freestyle events. So this is causing real concerns now. But this was down to a technical issue, which has hopefully been resolved now, and especially with the temperatures set to drop over the coming week, they certainly hope to be able to start ramping up their snow production from now on in. And fingers crossed, Mother Nature can give them a helping hand before they start the Olympics themselves in February. For my UK-based viewers, both Cairngorm Mountain and Glen Shee are now operating lift-serve skiing on man-made snow again on their beginner areas close to the base stations. Additionally, Cairngorm are also able to offer skiing on real snow on one of their summit runs. Glencoe Mountain have now pushed out the snow on their sledging slope and that is now full width and full length. Although unfortunately, they currently have no lift surf skiing available, with the exception of their dry slope down at the base station. The Lect also plan to push out the man-made piles of snow onto one of their beginner runs, and they are set to open for lift surf skiing from Boxing Day. So that's just about it for my festive snow report. Santa really has delivered the goods for some, and for everyone we should be seeing at the very least some snow in the Alps. So, Merry Christmas everyone. I hope Santa's bringing you some nice shiny new skis and snowboards to play with, and I hope you all have a wonderful time, no matter where you are and what you're doing. You'll be hearing from me again soon, and hopefully next time I'll be able to offer you promises of snow for the regions which have currently been missing out. A big thank you once again to the team over at Salesy Online. If any of you are planning to head out to the Via Latte at all this season, I'd highly recommend heading across to their channel and checking them out, so go and show them some love too. So once again, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas.